I'm really happy to be here with CED, which has done so much to put the fundamental issues of competitiveness on the agenda here in the United States. If the business community doesn't get out of the foxhole, as was said, and really take on these issues, I think we won't get there. I want to focus in my comments on job creation and growth as part of the solution. I think it was really appropriate that David Cote started with a competitiveness agenda in talking about fiscal health, because that's going to be an essential part of it. So I think everyone who can do arithmetic understands that the big questions of entitlement and tax reform are central to the discussions of fiscal sustainability. But long-term growth and a robust U.S. job market are also going to be critical to the long-term fiscal sustainability, not to mention to preserve the American dream. So if you think about the cost of unemployment from a fiscal standpoint, they are substantial. We've paid out over the last 3.5 years about $400 billion in unemployment insurance, but that's really just the tip of the iceberg. Because of the 8.5 million people who lost their jobs had been working, they would have produced over that same period about $2.5 trillion in output, in purchasing power, and the like. And then when you look at the evidence of what happens to the long-term unemployed over the long term in their earning power, those same people will probably have lost about $4.5 trillion of future earnings. That's just the unemployment problem we've had so far. So you can think about what that means in terms of tax receipts and the like. It's a big issue. But it's not just the job market. It's our more fundamental systems of competitiveness. So take education. Mckinsey looked at this a couple of years ago and estimated the cost of the achievement gap between the U.S. K-12 system and those of the better systems in the world at over $1.3 trillion a year, so something similar to the costs of the recession. And then in speaking about higher education, and I know CED will be talking about post-secondary education, we probably need 1 million more college graduates a year than we have by 2020 if our current system isn't reformed, isn't made more effective. That's going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars a year, money we don't have. We have to reform that system to make it more effective. Dave Cote talked about the need for more engineers. Some work that's been done by Paul Otellini of Intel and the President's Council on Jobs and Competitiveness has shown that actually we get enough engineering students into the pipeline, but we just don't keep enough of them there. There's leakage in the pipeline, and that's true of the post-secondary system as a whole. We don't have the kind of graduation rates that we need. So these are some of the institutional reforms we need. And as we think about putting America back to work more generally, there are tremendous institutional reforms that we can take place. It's not just a structural problem that we can't do anything about, whether that's from streamlining tourist visas and foreign investment in the U.S., simplifying and streamlining the regulatory processes for building factories and production facilities. We're right now 27th in the world at the speed of getting a construction permit. This is something that we need to fix, whether that's innovative financing for infrastructure, whether that's creating the right incentives for collaboration around scaling up the R&D done here in the United States into production in the United States, or whether it's turning our unemployment system today, which is completely disconnected from the job training system and from the job placement system, into truly a reemployment system, as countries like Germany and Australia and the Netherlands have done successfully, and those countries now have much lower unemployment rates. So these are what I want to emphasize there are these are institutional reforms that we need to make for our long-term health. And yet, all of these institutional reforms require strengthening the capacity of government agencies, making them more effective, government agencies that fall under the category of non-defense discretionary spending, which is the part of our government that will see nothing but cuts in the future. The 13% of the budget that will be spent on interest payments will squeeze that out until and unless the everything on the table approach that the CED is advocating is taken seriously. So not only the cuts in those areas, but the uncertainty. We hear a lot of uncertainty in the private sector, and that's a big deal. But think about the uncertainty in the public sector as well. If the agencies that should be focused on reforming and doing these better are actually doing new budgets, reworking budgets for continuing resolutions every 3 to 6 months for the next several years, we may see some small cuts, but we're not going to see anything like serious reform. So the economic changes of the past 20 years have been huge. Actually, some of the long-term economic trends are starting to move back in our favor, and the U.S. has a number of very great competitive advantages, but our institutions haven't really risen to the challenges. So we need to fix the long-term fiscal situation so that we can adapt our institutions to create the next era of American prosperity. And as Charlie noted, we did it once before, so it's time to do it again. Thanks.